Good evening. I don't blame Trump for behaving the way he is. Not just because he's Trump. His overarching interest is America and her welfare and prosperity. His measures and actions, perceived by others as good or bad, are taken keeping that in mind. So he is free to slander and abuse India or any other country for all I care, call it a dead economy. But what and whose interest does Rahul Gandhi have in echoing the falsehood of Trump? Last year saw independent India's highest ever GST collection, $270 billion. Highest ever vehicle sales, 25 million. Highest ever income tax payers, 104 million. Highest ever manufacturing PMI, 59.2. Highest ever exports, 825 billion. Highest ever jobs created, 46 million. Highest ever foreign exchange reserve, 704 billion. Highest ever Sensex, 85,900. I suppose all these are telltale signs of a dead economy. But rebutting fools and clowns aside, I want to talk of something that is bothering me again as a layman. I'm afraid the Congress and the left has pushed the right-thinking people of this country into a trap. Good economics is about free markets, private enterprise, less state control, less protectionism, more competition. So in egging Indians into seeing Trump and America as an adversary, they are making us see good economics as an adversary. By hook or by crook, they want to see India ruled by communists of whatever shade, CPIM. They don't care where the M is Marx or Modi if the party remains CPI. We must be wary of this. We must not mix jingoism with economics. This shouldn't degenerate into America being seen as an enemy. Look, free trade is the only way of eradicating poverty and making humanity more prosperous and equal. And so I am fundamentally against tariffs and quotas. They encourage protectionism and license raj. They help in the short run because through protectionism and high tariffs, you create more jobs, more domestic growth and setting up of factories and lower imports. But in the long run, protectionism and high tariffs result in what they've always resulted in, a socialist trap that ultimately destroys a country's economy through less choice for consumers, outdated technology, increasing friction with other countries, and higher prices because of lack of competition and rule of monopoly. Remember Ambassador cars and Campa Cola? Protectionism is against Darwinian evolution, whose overarching fundamental is spirit of competition enabling survival of the fittest. That said, in taking to the spirit of competition in free trade, one cannot obviously allow unfair trade practices and dumping of goods by dictatorships. So I think Modi did great to have pulled out when he did out of RCEP, which was effectively a free trade agreement with China, a known currency manipulator that props up its companies underhand, indulging in unfair trade practices. On the other hand, Modi also did great to enter into an FTA with the UK, a democracy. Therefore, in the long run, even though tariffs are harmful and counterproductive, they are an effective measure to check unfair trade practices. Besides, the extent of tariffs is decided by the WTO, erstwhile the GATT, and nations come to mutually agreed upon rates. The ultimate goal is a level playing field that encourages competition, respects and rewards intellectual property, and gives consumers a choice at a reasonable cost. High tariffs don't do any of these things. Also, if countries trading with America deployed high tariffs to protect their local business interests, then America is within its rights to deploy reciprocal tariffs. Those opposing Trump now were fine with Canada slapping 200% tariffs on American agricultural goods or the EU slapping 50% tariffs on US wine. So it is fine for Canada and the EU and a host of other countries to protect their farmers and their domestic market and businesses, but not fine for America to do the same. Isn't that hypocritical? Finally, all things being equal, imposing tariffs by a developing country on identical goods being imported from a developed country I believe is superfluous. Doesn't make sense. Because that product of the same quality and standard is being made in the developed world by someone who's earning 10 times the wages. And so when that product is sold in the developing world, its cost would naturally be higher and consumers would naturally choose the domestic product. A simple pencil, for example, of identical quality made in America will sell at a much higher price than its Indian equivalent in India, because the American who made it is given much higher wages. So it is befuddling why India imposes 80% tariff on American rice or 20% on American pencils. The trap arises when Americans decide they want cheaper pencils and start choosing pencils made in developing country, or their American pencil manufacturer begins getting its pencils made in a developing country to avoid paying higher wages. Ultimately, it's about graduating to higher quality, more tech, more IP demanding jobs. Free markets and free trade is the best arbiter. Did you know that Japan does not impose any tariffs on American cars? Because Japanese don't want to buy American cars as they are not as good as non-American cars. In fact, it is America that imposes tariffs on Japanese car makers, and yet Japanese car makers have roughly the same market share as American car makers in America. The point I'm trying to make is protectionism isn't going to help us at all. Are we going to see sense, or are we going to see the 1970s again? Which is exactly what the Congress and the left wants. Besides, people living in glass houses should not throw stones. What has the state done with all the money that it takes from us? India's R&D spend is just 0.6% of the GDP, the lowest amongst the BRICS nations. Our education sector is in shambles. Our universities and schools are far from world class. 56% of high school students cannot solve a simple division sum. 25% struggle with reading a class 2 level text. 51% of Indian graduates are unemployable. 79% of India's workforce is unskilled. Our governments are busy being in the business of running businesses, spending 9 lakh crores every year in propping up PSUs, most of which are loss making. I will tell you what you're spending on: freebies, MSP, and every damn thing to placate your vote banks and pushing state more and more in debt that would soon will have to be paid. You are spending billions of dollars of taxpayers' money in asking people to dig trenches through Manrega. What have you done to reform our sectors so that they are competitive? The sectors that are crying out for reforms. What have you done as far as labor reforms are concerned, as far as reducing the number of compliances and filing for businesses are concerned? You say you want to protect our farmers. Really? Have you even asked our farmers, real farmers, not the perennially protesting middlemen farmers or the non-tax paying farmer dynasties? Have you ever asked them what is it that they want to be protected? Primitive, labor intensive, non-productive, pesticide-laced, rotting, rat-eaten agricultural produce and practices. 44% of our 600 million strong labor force is involved in agriculture, a sector that contributes only 14% to our GDP. In the West, it is 2% of labor force. A quarter of our adult population being involved in agriculture is unsustainable, especially if you look at the catastrophic situation the agricultural sector is in. Production to purchase, the entire chain is archaic, as I said, almost medieval. 70 million hectares of agricultural land has been damaged by floods and drought in the last 6 years. That's 40% of all agricultural land available in India. You want to protect that? 81% of farmers and croplands are not insured. 110,000 Indian farmers have committed suicide in the last 10 years. 40% of our agriculture is still totally dependent on rain. Sugarcane takes up only 9.4% of the total cultivated area, but 71.4% of its irrigable water. And India produces 500 billion kilograms of sugarcane. 50 million farmers are engaged in just cultivating this sugarcane. Total water used, 1 quadrillion liters. equivalent to 10 Ganga Sagar dams. And sugar prices, they've halved in recent years. In the 40 years, India's water availability per capita is down by half, from 3,000 to 1,450 cubic meters. The water scarcity threshold defined as necessary for civilized living is 1,700 cubic meter per person. 3,200 billion cubic feet of water from the Godavari river ends up in the sea during monsoon. 1,860 billion cubic feet is the total water requirement of the entire state of Tamil Nadu. 48% of our river water goes into the sea during the monsoon. River linking project that envisaged linking 30 rivers was expected to provide additional irrigation to 30 million hectares and net power generation capacity of about 25 gigawatts. Where is it? We haven't linked our districts with rivers. Instead, we are linking them with water trains. Feeling proud, the politicians cutting ribbons. Narmada Dam, with its raised height, now irrigates 2.4 million hectares, lights up 1.4 million homes, and provides drinking water to about 33 million people. But here's the thing. Pandit Nehru laid the foundation stone and Narendra Modi inaugurated it. It took more than 50 years to build. Our farmers produce 4,000 kilograms of rice per hectare. That is less than 50% of the world's highest yield per hectare for rice. For maize, we are 30% of the world's highest yield per hectare. In the last 10 years, the profit margin for growing rice has decreased by a third. India is the world's second largest consumer of pesticides. 60,000 tons of chemical pesticide is used on our crops every year. The land is poisoned, the food is poisoned, and the consumers are poisoned. 30,000 Indians die each year of pesticide poisoning. What are you protecting? Thousands of tons of exported food is rejected each year because of excess pesticide content. Our food export refusal rate to USA is 7 times higher than China's. India loses 74 million tons of food every year. 30% of fruits and vegetables are lost because of improper and inadequate storage. We produce 320 million tons of food grains, and we can store adequately only half of that. Half. Is that what you're trying to protect? By high tariffs, by protecting farmers. But the 3 farm laws would have changed all this, to give farmers the choice of selling their produce at a government or a private marketplace, to do away with the draconian provisions of the Essential Commodities Act, to establish contract farming. And when Modi announced these farm laws, he must have thought, hey, these reforms would be the easiest to pull through because every opposition party had promised these very reforms. Little did he know, every single opposition party took a U-turn the moment Modi delivered what they had promised. Suddenly, these promised farm laws turned into black laws. Highways were blocked, riots interrupted. India suffered an economic loss of 3,500 crores every day for almost a year. And you want to protect all this with high tariffs? Protectionism is bad. Darwin said so, and Darwin is always right.